Lokesh Jindal completes this panel, political analyst. Dr. Ranganathan, we've had many discussions on this. What is essentially a move to reform the Waqf Act has been blocked, and what is the ruse, excuse, pretext, religion that you are going after Muslims? Stop.
To my fellow panelists, I have a couple of things to say. It's a very important discussion. I'm glad we are having it. Look, only three things are certain in an Indian's life. Let's get this straight. Death, taxes, and that knowingly or unknowingly, he ends up walking every day on Waqf land. 77% of Delhi is supposed to be on Waqf land. Waqf Act is a parallel government being run. It has its own legislature in the form of board. It has its own executive in the form of a surveyor, and it has its own judiciary in the form of a tribunal. In fact, Waqf, I would say, is one of the 8 reasons why Hindus, forget about Muslims, Hindus are 8th-class citizens in their own country. Now, I want to say this is very important. Yes, it is good of the government to bring in amendments, but if India is to be saved from becoming an Islamic republic, then hear this. Amendments are not enough. This entire act has to be abrogated, because I ask you, is there a similar act for documenting, selling, purchasing properties that are related to Hindus or Christians or Sikhs or any other denomination? Why have a separate clause or an act exclusively for a particular community? That itself is discrimination, not only there and then, it is also discrimination for the other communities. Now I tell you, there have been some amendments, they are good, but they don't go far enough because they don't touch something that needs to be touched, and they are draconian clauses of the Waqf. So, for example, mandatory registration of Waqf property now is with district collector office. Okay, that's good. But that doesn't stop the discrimination happening against Hindus. Number 2, government properties identified as Waqf properties before or after the Act's amendment will now be considered, not be considered Waqf property. That is good. But it also then entails a long legal process that the state has to fight. Number 3, this is important because it takes care of the draconian Section 40. Now, the district collector will decide whether a property is Waqf or on government land. The bill also removes provisions allowing for a property to be considered Waqf based on oral declaration. Good. But that was blatant discrimination. But, for example, Section 28 has not been amended as far as I am concerned. It gives power to order a collector. Section 8 says the state has to pay for the Waqf survey. Pranesh, this is in direct violation of Article 27 of our Constitution that says no person shall be compelled to pay any taxes, the proceeds of which are specifically appropriated in payment of expenses for the promotion or maintenance of any particular religion or religious denomination. Section 107 says Act 36 of 1963 Statute of Limitation will not apply. Statute of Limitation doesn't apply for recovery of Waqf property. Section 101 says the survey commissioner, members of the board, every officer, every auditor of the board, and every other person appointed to discharge any duties imposed on him by this act shall be deemed to be public servant, as is understood by the Indian Penal Code. So now Maulvis will be constituted as public servants, and you know what happens when you touch literally or figuratively any public servant. These are clauses that are absolutely draconian. Forget about being helpful for Muslims. They are antagonistic and discriminated against other religions and people of other communities. Waqf Act, I'm sorry, has to go.
Mr. Saravanan, you're erudite, sir. Every time we have an informed debate.
The BJP.
No, Mr. Saravanan, I'll come to you, sir. But Dr. Ranganathan has asked several questions of the BJP. He believes, while the opposition is saying that this bill is anti-Muslim, Dr. Ranganathan is saying that this is not strong enough. You have to have a stronger reform. And why has this taken so long? So I want to quickly bring in Mr. Zafar Islam, and then I'm coming to you, sir. Mr. Zafar Islam, what would you tell Dr. Ranganathan, who you just heard?
See, I do not want to comment on Dr. Ranganathan because he is making a statement on the bill which has been introduced in the parliament. So I will speak as a party spokesperson. I will only speak about the bill which has been introduced and what is the intent behind it. As he rightly, some of the observation he has made that yes, it is being run in a manner that where there is no transparency. I think it should be managed in a manner that the beneficiary is defined in this, because it is not that the state government, or for that matter, government has given this piece of land or the property to the Waqf board. It is the Muslim community, and the member of the Muslim community has donated to the Muslim, for the welfare of the Muslim community. So no one can claim that it has come from X or Y or Z. It is the property of the Muslim community which is being donated by a Muslim for the welfare of the Muslim community, and the beneficiary should only be the Muslim member of the Muslim community. Like, for instance, you create a foundation, and the foundation is only defined the objective, based on that objective it works. It doesn't, the government doesn't own this foundation, but within the framework of this entire setup, the law of the land is more important. That is why this legislation has been, or the bill has been introduced for the amendment. What is important for us, for all of us to understand, that there are only few people, maybe 200, 300, 400 people actually, like a mafia, managing the Waqf properties, which is the strongest objection of the government, because the objective of the Waqf is not to be managed and the beneficiary should be a handful of people, but the ordinary Muslim, the weaker section within the Muslim community should be, because that is the purpose. Like if I donate my property to the Waqf, it doesn't belong to the government, it doesn't belong to anyone else. It belongs to the Waqf. It is like a foundation. It's a collective foundation of the Muslim community, where the benefit should go to only the Muslim community, member of the Muslim community, those Muslim members who are actually the needy ones.
Okay,
Here
but among other criticisms, Syed Zafar Islam, among other criticisms, sir, and we will hear from the members of the opposition. 1 minute, sir, 1 minute. Among other criticism, one is that why are non-Muslims part of the panel? But before you answer that, I want to bring in some of the others. Mr. Saravanan, you go first.
Yes. Yeah. See, that is the fundamental question. Our leader in the parliament, Madam Kanimari, asked this question. Will there be a Muslim or a Christian in a Hindu board? Is it possible? This is the sentiment that has been expressed among everybody. And where does the union government have the legislative competence to enact a law which is about land or about religious endowments? They don't have the legislative competence. It is only the state governments which have the power to manage the lands. And it is a direct interference in the federal structure of our constitution. The BJP, ever since it has come to power, has always done this, trying to usurp the powers of the state government in the garb of, I am trying to do this, I am trying to do that. That apart, another important feature is that they say that the collector will decide all these things. But who is the collector to decide a land dispute? It has to ultimately be decided by a court. That is why any civil dispute, any land dispute, the executive authorities cannot decide. Only a tribunal or only a quasi-judicial thing can decide on that. So this is also violative of whatever we have been following so long. And the most important aspect of this Waqf thing is that the entire thing, we know all the Waqf is coming from donations from the believers. And how can the government try to say, no, we will govern this? It is not possible.
Can I ask you, sir? Can I ask you something? Mr. Saravanan, 1 minute, sir. 1 minute.
Tamil Nadu.
Yeah, answer one question before we move on.
I have anticipated what you are going to ask me. Pranesh, I have anticipated what you are asking going to ask me.
Tell me.
You are saying, oh, the state of Tamil Nadu is controlling. Yes, controlling the Hindu religious and charitable endowments. How is it allowed? Why are you allowing this? This has been answered several times.
Yeah, now that you've anticipated the question, please answer it also.
Yes. I will answer that. Allow me to answer. Yeah. See, when it comes to the Hindu temples, all of them were built by the kings from the taxes collected by the people. It belongs to the people. And when we got independence, everything got transferred to the state. This is the fundamental difference between the Hindu temples and others. So let us not compare these two and break our brains. Let us not do that.
That is not an explanation,
India
Mr.
is a secular country.
Someone who
under
knows a
Article
thing or two about
26,
this,
25,
Dr. Ranganathan, he has his hand up. He has something to tell you. Tushar, I am coming to you. Adil bhai, मैं आ रहा हूँ आपके पास. ये एक सवाल ले लेते हैं.
I'm glad we're having this wonderful erudite discussion. I have 3 points to make. Number one, to slightly correct Mr. Saravanan, There indeed are Hindu temple boards that have non-Hindus. The famous example being a Muslim on Tarkeshwar board. There are on Tirupati board as well. So it is wrong to suggest that non-Hindus are not part of Hindu temple boards, number one. Number two, nobody on this earth, least of all I, am objecting to a Muslim donating to a Waqf, his or her property. It's a free country. There should be a Waqf board. But why should there be a Waqf Act? I don't understand that. Everything that this country happens in this country, the give and take, donation of property or land is subject to Indian law. Do you mean to say that if Waqf Act wasn't there, the sale, purchase, donation of property will no longer be applicable for Muslims? That's rubbish. You are having this Waqf Act specifically as a piece of legislative appeasement to Muslims. And that is why it must go. Because if this Waqf Act wasn't there, the sale, deed, purchase or property donation of Muslims by